Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Fast 5 session that we're doing. This is a new initiative from Smstrusteenews, giving SMSF members an insight into some of the best financial advisors in the community, along with the opportunity to ask them questions about current issues via the Facebook platform. I'm Darin Tyson-Chan. I'm the editor of Smstrusteenews. And of course, behind me, you can see branding for Self-Managed Super Magazine, which is the sister publication of Smstrusteenews. And for the first session of the Fast 5, we're joined by Dean Hutchins, who is the founder of Diversified Financial Planners. Welcome, Dean. It's my very great pleasure to have you along today to help us along with the initial Fast 5 session. How are you?
Thanks, Darin. I'm well, thank you. And thanks for inviting me.
That's good. Well, let's get stuck into it, seeing this is a fast session. Just a little bit of background on you. How did you get involved in the SMSF sector to begin with?
I suppose I started in the financial planning area near on 25 years ago. And just as things progressed, I made the decision I wanted to specialize in something rather than just be a generalist planner, and just I suppose my focus was towards the self-managed super funds, and I just kept progressing and upskilling in that area until I become what I would imagine as a specialist now in the industry.
In your years of experience that you've had being a specialist advisor, if there's one piece of advice that you can narrow down that you would regard as the most valuable piece of advice you've provided a client, what would it be?
Just one? Look, there's a couple. I think probably the biggest error I see is a number of people who have reached preservation age that are still in accumulation mode, where they haven't commenced a pension at the right time. And for some people, they may have missed out on 5 to 10 years worth of tax-free income in their super fund. I think that's a pretty significant one. I think franking credits are underutilized by a lot of people who are maybe a little bit afraid of shares or not educated enough. So I think that's another real benefit that people can look at helping with their super funds overall tax effectiveness as well.
Okay. Well, this is a continually changing environment, the superannuation system and SMSS as well. So in light of that, what are the issues trustees are currently struggling with the most at the moment?
I think probably the thing that I would see most commonly come across our desk when we're meeting with someone that's had a fund up and running already, I think it just comes down to carelessness. I see a lot of just sloppy management or lack of account keeping records. And that just leads to mistakes. A lot of the work we do when we onboard a new fund or onboard someone that's got an existing fund is initially there's quite a lot of cleanup, and that can be maybe it's the fact that they have got investment strategies, which is pretty common, or see investment strategies where there's just 0 to 100%, right through to we've had issues where 15 years ago someone had a rollover put in to the super fund, but it went into the wrong spouse's name, and 15 years worth of accounts that are incorrect, and pensions started in the wrong person's name, which we have to then liaise with the tax office to get an optimal outcome so that we can actually get the fund up to scratch on that particular day that we're starting to deal with them.
Wow. There's obviously a lot can be done to the SMSF sector, but if you could change one, if you were in control and you could change one thing, what would it be?
It would be to stop tinkering with it. I couldn't tell you, like, in terms of the number of clients that come in and talk to us, and so many people tend to lose a little bit of faith in the superannuation sector just because it's almost something's being tinkered with at each budget. And for that, I'd love to say the politicians, I just wish they were subject to the same rules as the rest of us are with our super funds. because I think if they were subject to it, they probably wouldn't tinker as much with it. So I think that would be probably for me the number one sort of thing that I'd like to see. But I think the other change I wouldn't mind seeing also is just the ability to transfer residential property into super fund, because we tend to have a lot of clients that have accumulated properties throughout their life, get to retirement, and then they can't have that as part of their retirement portfolio. It obviously has to sit aside, but it'd be great to be able to do some work around that as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with both of those things, to be honest. And look, just finally, it is the Fast Five, and this is the fifth question that I get to ask you. Do you have a bold prediction for us about what might happen over the next 12 months?
Oh, over the next 12 months. Look, I think we've all been a little bit afraid of tax changes, especially with the way the budget deficit's been around the country. And so there's always that overriding concern that superannuation, being the tax advantaged vehicle that it is an opportunity for the government to grab a little bit of extra tax revenue. I'd hate to see it, but I know that there's been a lot of attention on the, I suppose, excessively large funds. So hopefully it doesn't happen and people are able to continue running those. But I think that's an area that could possibly see some changes immediately. But I think maybe if I just look beyond 12 months, I think the way the professionalism of the industry has increased, I think it would be probably likely to see some requirement that there's a professional involved with the super fund along the way, just to help with minimising those mistakes and errors that I mentioned earlier. It also then would mean that the tax office wouldn't have to deploy the same compliance resources and audits as well. So it'll take a lot of responsibility from them, knowing that there's actual professionals involved with the fund to make sure that it's running at a compliant level.
Yeah, right. So to your first point, Dean, I think the Labor Party has already made some noises about not putting in a total super balance cap if they do get elected. So we'll see whether or not they stick to their word on that one, or whether or not they find it too attractive to implement a policy like that. Well, they're all the questions I'm going to ask of Dean. So now it's up to you who have joined us online today to ask your own questions of Dean. So I'm going to open up Facebook to allow any SMSF members out there to ask Dean about some of the issues that might be troubling you or you'd like to discuss a little bit further right now. Dean is all ears and would love to answer your questions.
Probably should iterate. There's no question that's not worth answering either. So it doesn't matter how small the question is. Happy to answer it.
Well, Dean, there might be a few people who are a little bit, shy about coming forward about answering questions, as always sort of happens in these forums. So I've got a few to get the process underway.
Thanks, mate.
Look, one of the big developments over the past few weeks was the legislation was passed, including the budget announcements, some of the budget announcements that were made last year affecting superannuation. And one of those things was to scrap the work test for individuals up to the age of 75 from the 1st of July this year. What's your opinion on this? Will it make a huge difference to people's contribution strategies? And would you be encouraging them from that date, or even now in the preparation to that change in the law, to revise their contribution strategies now?
Look, it's a huge measure, and it's something I think we've probably been screaming for well, pretty much nearly every year that I've been in business for over 20 years. Look, we've had situations where people have come into some money after that age of 65 and hadn't previously been able to put money in, where they've then had to go and work for a friend who's got a fish and chip shop or a news agency or a cleaning business just to satisfy the work test. So I suppose, again, having a professional involved allowed for us to be able to work out solutions to do that. But this is just going to open it up so much better for so many more people, especially those that are just aren't as knowledgeable. So I'm really wrapped about that. It's going to be a huge thing because we've got a lot of clients that we deal with that may only just come on board with us in their last few years of retirement, and we haven't been able to move all of their money into super as we'd like. I think the other benefit is also just the ability to use the recontribution strategy and flush out that taxable component and convert it to tax-free. So the benefit for those that aren't aware is eventually there's likely to be tax payable on the death benefit of any taxable component. So this now gives us another 10 years where we can work at converting that taxable to tax-free to reduce any tax payable by the ultimate beneficiaries.
Yeah, I hate using this word, but I do honestly believe in the true sense of the description. This will be a game changer for a lot of people. But as I said, I hate using that word because it's that description is used far too often. Now, still waiting for people to contribute. Please, we encourage you, ask anything of Dean that might be worrying you. I know one thing that is worrying a lot of people, and maybe you can shed some light on this, Dean, is the process of having to get a director identification number if you are a director of a corporate trustee for an SMSF. I know that the government has tried to make this as electronically dependent as possible, but due to the demographic of a large number of SMSF trustees, this is going to be quite a difficult process. Are you seeing, any feedback about, I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do it? I know that financial advisors can't execute the process for their clients, but I do believe that a lot of hand-holding is going to be needed for this exercise. That's not necessarily doing it for the client, but just helping them through the process. Are you seeing any difficulties or any questions about the director identification numbers right now?
I'd say we've got two issues. It's amazing how many people just don't have everything still set up on MyGov, which is obviously the way that the government wants that to be done. So in all honesty, we're just going to go through and take screenshots of our MyGov, to make it an example of this is how you actually do it. But we're actually at the moment finding it much easier just to give them a paper-based application and get them to complete that, which I know it defies what the intent is, but it seems to be working with a lot more success for those that we're dealing with. There's a lot of work to do between now and I think it's the end of October, start of November. So it's a tricky one. And as you said, we're not allowed to help the clients or set it up for them, nor any other professionals. It's something that the government have said that it has to be done by that person. But unfortunately, we just have to look at it. As I said, the fact that a lot of people still don't even understand MyGov and how to use it properly. So you have to get them educated on that before then giving them something complex like doing the director ID.
Well, I think the government's made a slight mistake in their messaging as far as stipulating that the individual has to do it themselves. It's almost intimated that nobody can help you, whereas it's a matter of somebody can't do it on your behalf, but people can still help you through the process. But a lot of the messaging I'm seeing is, nope, you got to do this yourself, and that can sort of indicate that, well, I'm on my own here and I can't ask for any help, which I think is a huge mistake. I think it's been mega confusing. I mean, I've got to do it myself, and to me, it's been mega confusing that they create an app called MyGov ID, which is completely separate to MyGov. I mean, seriously, can't it be called something else? I mean, that in itself is going to be confusing, especially for people of an older demographic. And as you say, it's self-defeating, because if it is seen as being too difficult, as your solution comes to the fore, people will just do the paper-based application, which is not what the government want to do anyway.
I don't want to go 200,000.
So I think the process is flawed. I'm not looking forward to doing it myself. And I've probably got slightly more of a clue than other people. Anybody who knows my history knows that I've been criticised for not upgrading to a smartphone for many, many years. I have done that now. So I'm not saying that I'm the most technically proficient person in this area, but I'm better than some people. And I'm a little bit pensive about having to go through that process myself. Now, I'm sure plenty of you out there who are listening to us right now have probably explored some of this already. If you'd like to share some of your experiences with us, or ask Dean a question as to what you might need to do, if you're having a little bit of trouble getting your director ID, please fire away a question, and I'm sure Dean will be only too happy to answer it.
Darin, someone just run a note in saying there are live questions that apparently you're not able to see. So
okay, sorry, this is technical stuff.
Yep.
I apologise. It's the first time we've done it.
Okay.
Dean, if you can see them, then you can go ahead and answer the questions if you like.
Find here. What would be your advice for someone starting an SMSF purely for property? Okay, so I think there's a couple of things that we have to be mindful of. Is one, under the investment strategy that's required under Section 52 of the Superannuation Act, one of the things you have to have regard to is diversification. And so if you've only got the one asset pretty much being the property in there, the ATO has started sending letters out in the last couple of years where they raising that as a concern, because you know that obligation is actually a rule of the superannuation laws. So diversification needs to be there. But one of the things that I would look at is, obviously we have quite a lot of people who have maybe a commercial property which they use for their own business use, which is a pretty common strategy, and that may initially be the reason the super fund's set up and does consume near on 100% of the assets of the fund. It's then about having a plan to further diversify the fund so that you're going to move away from what is effectively 100% in property to a longer term average where you're bringing in some other assets for that diversification. So there's no problems at all in doing it purely for the property, as long as obviously the cash flow is still there in the fund. We've still addressed the issue of liquidity, which again is one of the parts under the investment strategy that's required, and then, as I say, introduce other assets to bring that diversification. I think the letters went out to everyone that had more than 90% in one asset, which generally was property. So we want to try to avoid any extra correspondence from the ATO if we can help that. I've got another one.
I can see the questions now, Dean, and I think the second one on the list there is really relevant, considering Jane Hearn's made an announcement as well in this area this week. But what are your views on crypto in SMSF?
Yeah, look, I'm personally, from a professional perspective, I'm not someone that has really any time for the crypto thing. And I've said to many friends and everything over the years, I could miss out on the biggest thing ever and miss out on a fortune by not doing it. However, at the end of the day, you're buying an idea rather than an asset. And I think if anyone was to go too extreme by investing in crypto, I don't know whether it's another tulip mania or something like that. For those of you who don't know anything about tulip mania, have a read about that, because it's quite interesting, where tulips were selling for bulbs were selling for more than the prices of houses, I think in the 20s. But look, for me, I suppose there's tax concessions by having the crypto in the super fund as compared to owning it outright. But for me, as a professional, it's not something I recommend. It's just, I think it's just too risky. I think the other thing that I would note is the tax office have put in the tax return, I think the last 2 years, they actually asking how much was invested in crypto. So I think that's something that they're obviously keeping an eye on as well.
Now, these aren't questions, but more statements. I can see that the director ID thing is striking a nerve. Alan Dowling says, agreed, Darin. I thought I was the only one confused about MyGov and MyGovID. Well, I can assure you you're not, because it took me a while to figure out, oh, it's not my MyGov account online that I'm supposed to do. And of course, you've got to set up a new account and blah, 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 blah. I don't know why they couldn't give it a different naming protocol. And Dawn Tanner says that the MyGovID app didn't work for me. I called and did it over the phone. Is there any, if they are struggling with that, Dean, is there anything that you would recommend that they do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know some people have to get their children to help them set it up and the likes. But look, even when I set my own MyGov up a few years ago, like I hadn't done it, and I had my mum help me, which I know that sounds pretty odd, but like I don't have time for mucking around with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But look,
No.
The majority of Australians probably have been forced to have it established now, especially with check-in requirements and everything for the pandemic and linking the Medicare to it. But look, I think there's help there. It's just a matter of speaking to friends and family to help get that set up if you haven't got it done. But you're not alone. There's tons of people. In fact, I just had someone last week that hadn't set one up as well, and it took her a couple of days to get back to me and say that she had done that. So very common.
Dean, if I could tell people not to stress too much if they're finding the process too arduous, there is a technical specialist that I know in the industry, and he went through and did it. It took him a minimum of 20 minutes to go through the whole process. And he did not find it straightforward either. And he's probably got more of a clue than a lot of us out there. I would suggest from my own personal experience, don't start it and stop, because I did a MyGovID and now I can't remember the password and I've got to go right back to the start and do it again. So if I could issue any advice, don't do that, because I made that mistake. Anyway, there is another question, Dean. This is from Rayma Troy. Dean, the biggest frustration as a corporate trustee of an SMSF is a reliable system that provides real-time information. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Are we talking, so what sort of real-time information? I probably need a little bit more clarity. Are we talking about the real-time information of the investments, or are we talking about?
Yeah, I would assume that she would be referring to real-time information in terms of how do I change my strategy to be right up to date.
I suppose. Yeah, it's hard when you go and look at the tax office for any information. They can be very vague or incredibly over-specific, or the one question that you've got isn't answered on their Q&A pages. So that is pretty tough. I think there's certainly a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of professionals like them for the likes of myself, and I know there's other professionals that you'll be interviewing in following weeks. That's what we do. We've got access to all of that up-to-date information, and this isn't a plug, to make sure that you are using someone like that. It obviously helps, and I think we add a great deal of value. But I think if you're not using someone that's doing this purely as pretty much 100% of their role, it does make it tough to get access to some of that information. So look, I'm sure any questions that we can help out with, we'll certainly do our best to assist if there's anything specific that maybe I haven't answered properly there. But documentation can be a little bit tricky to find, especially compliant documentation, because like I know, for instance, if you Google a lease document or something like that, a lot of them are garbage. So you do need to probably seek proper legal documents to satisfy a compliant outcome.
I don't think I've got another.
Has actually come back and say no, looking at the accounting. So yeah, okay, that's what I maybe initially thought. Sorry, so we went down a path that was a little irrelevant there. Yeah, look, that's tricky. I don't know what the rules are with class now. It used to be that you have to have 25 funds in order to actually be able to subscribe to class. I've got a couple of clients that mirror what we do just on MyAb or QuickBooks. I'm not sure whether Xero does it, but yeah, they will just mirror the investments in there themselves. But yeah, unfortunately, just because of the scale of what the Hub 24s or the class want in terms of their minimum client, it's not really practical for them to just set it all up for one particular client. But I suppose if I think about those that we've will look after that maybe have tried to do it themselves. As I said, some of the accounting software, they do a pretty reasonable job, but I won't give a current right at the minute balance on the shares. Obviously, that's something that isn't available through those. But then, yeah, I would see most people will keep a spreadsheet or use the reports out of the share brokerage companies, so the CompSec reports or the Macquarie reports, and that gives the share part, and then they probably keep another ledger, be it a spreadsheet or as I said, the accounting software on things such as their properties with their rent and everything. But yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, for us, it's fantastic having the access. We use Class personally, and I think it's brilliant. But yeah, unless you got the number of funds, unfortunately, you just missed out on that respect. Do you know of any, Darin? I mean, you might be.
No, not really. I'm not familiar at that sort of granular detail as far as that goes. Obviously, we know the main service providers out there. I just think that it's a very relevant question, and I think it just gives moving to real-time reporting probably some gravitas, and it's probably a discussion that will continue in the industry to allow individuals like Raymer to look at their situation in real time. Well, before we run out of time, I think I'll conclude the chat there. So just wanted to thank you, Dean, again for being the first person on our Fast 5 initiative. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it, and thanks for thinking of me for number one.
Oh, it's no problem at all. Just to let you know, to the people who did log on today, I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you for your company. Just letting you know that our next Fast 5 session will be held ominously on Friday, the 13th of May, and Liam Short will be joining us then. For practitioners who want to be a part of the Fast 5 session, please email us at events@bmarkmedia.com.au or reach us via the SMS Trustee News Facebook page, and just use the messenger facility to let us know. And for the trustees who have joined us today, if you are not subscribing to SMS Trustee News, please do. It's a great publication that covers a cross-section of these issues, and you can be sure that you'll be up to date on a fortnightly basis. Just go to smstrusteenews.com.au and hit the subscribe button in the subscription area, and you'll have joined yourself up to the list. It's free, so there's no need to pay any subscription fee either. So I'll wrap it up there. Looking forward to Friday, the 13th of May with Liam Short. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope that you found this a little bit interesting and somewhat useful as well for your own situation. And we look forward to your company again on Friday, May 13. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend and have a great rest of the day too.
Thank you, Darin. Thank you, everyone.